Kyle Whittingham did another interview over the weekend and lit the world on fire. And you guys know this is something we've talked about at length on the show. Kyle Whittingham, I truly believe is a top 5 coach in college football. I think he is a wildly respectful guy. He is somebody that understands how important the game is. He is full of integrity. I love Kyle Whittingham. I'm a huge fan. I think he is a maker of men. It's everything. Kyle Whittingham is everything you want a football coach to be. The University of Utah football program is everything you want a football program to be. And that's not an indictment, BYU fan. Please don't piss yourself. That's not an indictment or a comment about what BYU is not. I'm simply saying that Kyle Whittingham is somebody that I admire and I look up to. He's a leader of men. He is a leader in our community. And when he speaks, I listen. And he did an interview with a pretty crappy journalist. Journalist is probably strong. Somebody who stole a storyline from Big 12 Media Day from the guys at 365 Sports. Kyle Whittingham doubled down on his comments that he made at Big 12 Media Day when he said this.
So much change already, and there's more on the horizon, I can tell you that. We're not done. I think it's ultimately going to get to 2 super conferences and their own playoff system and probably break away from the NC2A and do, have a commissioner and all. An NFL minor league model, I think, is where we're heading in that regard.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that, mainly because we're one of the first people who told you they were going to model it after the NFL, and all of you hyenas told us we were jackwagons. Well, you have multiple people now saying that, and Kyle Whittingham, in fact, doubled down again this weekend in an interview with a pretty terrible reporter when he said this: I see expansion of the playoff with that to 16 teams. The short version is super conference. I think it's going to boil down to 40 to 60 teams, maybe in a super conference. I wouldn't be surprised if I lose my voice while reading this. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't play anybody but other super conference teams. I mean, you can go back and forth on this. And you can go back and forth on this.
Yeah.
But the simple truth is, I don't think it's an if anymore. With all due respect to the reporters who said that we're stupid, as one reporter said, and we don't know anything. Totally get it. What I'm telling you is the Super League is not dead. The Super League, I think, is going to be, I think it is probably a minimum of 2 years away. And I don't think there's any doubt that they're going to model it after the NFL playoffs, and it will be a minor league for the National Football League. And I think that's what it should be.
Absolutely. And I think that, this Super League concept is one that is never going to die because it's viable. And I think we've taken the next step in the bigger picture from, hey, is it dead or not dead, to, hey, is it coming or not coming, to, yeah, it is happening. It is on the horizon. It is in the works. And according to Kyle Whittingham, it's anywhere between 2 to 4 years out. And I think that's exactly what we said the first time we ever talked about it. And I think Kyle Whittingham is someone who is always been a big proponent of change in the sport and growing the sport and getting the sport to a place where it's all decided on the field and just a more efficient and proper setup. And I think that ultimately is what the Super League is. I mean, if you go around college football and, you think about, what the issue with college football has been for decades, it's always been, hey, we got to have people or a computer or a formula or whatever decide who's going where and what bowl games are doing what. And I think that's where the sport can improve. And I think it works so well to go that route, because not only can the sport improve that way, then you can start running money through it easier. It just makes more sense. And so when you look at it in the big picture, yeah, it is essentially an NFL minor league system. And my only question is, in the long term, and I don't know that we'll have an answer to this, right away, but I wonder for the group of 5 schools, How does this, if you're sitting here at a smaller school that's got a strong football program and you're like, yeah, hey, the power schools are going to a super league and they're going to change their format. How do we benefit from that? How can we make it better for us? And that, I think, for the entire landscape is the bigger question.
Yeah, I don't think anybody in the SEC gives a rat's ass about a G5 team. I truly do not. And I think that answer is very clear. I think you're going to have the G5 have its own playoff. They'll have their own TV contract, just as it should be. We're talking about, in my opinion, I still maintain the number. I'm with Kyle Whittingham on this. I think the number is probably 60 to 80. And 60 feels better than 80. And I think it is very simply 60 universities in this country that want to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on athletics. That's what this comes down to, because the days of smaller budgets, the days of Kyle Whittingham being the original BCS buster, those days are over. We're never going back. And I think when you look at the money, I am fond of a saying that you should use cough drops or something. I am fond of the saying that it's never about the money you are currently making. It is about the money you are not currently making. And when you look at college football, the money that they are not currently making is too large for them not to change the system. Because you look at the new college football playoff TV contract, that deal was always going to get done. You'll remember, well, that deal's not going to get done. There's nobody. Why? Because they're going to make a ton of money, so it's going to get done.
Yeah.
Nobody wants ESPN. Apparently they do. Apparently they do. And I'll continue to say this. The reason the College Football Super League is coming is because there's so much money that comes with it. And when you can, at the level that we're talking about, and if you just take the University of Utah on its own as an example, that is an educational institution that happens to have a sports department. And don't get this wrong. And we're going to talk about Deion Sanders in a minute. Colorado Boulder is an educational bastion. That's a great institution of higher learning that is tolerating Deion Sanders right now. And as soon as he's not making them the money he's making them now, what happens? The same thing with college football.
Yeah.
In totality. You look at a university like Utah. If they can make tens of millions of dollars more than they are making now, and they can apply that to new facilities, if they can apply that to new educators, infrastructure, if you can apply that to attract a higher cut of professor, a higher cut of educator, a higher cut of administrator, you're doing that. Because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, what it's about. And there's more money in the College Football Super League than in the current system. It's better for the young people because college football is not college basketball. You can't play a year and then go get to the NFL.
Right.
Right? You have to mature your body. You have to mature your emotions to be really good at NFL football. That's what college football is about. So guys like Kyle Whittingham, who are experts in taking 18-year-old kids and turning them into 21-year-old men, those are the guys that are going to benefit at the highest level. Whether Witt's still coaching when the Super League happens, I don't know. It's very interesting. Did anybody watch Hard Knocks with the Chicago Bears?
The Bears.
Who was one of the stars of the first episode of Hard Knocks?
Oh, I don't know. Marty Caleb Williams?
No. How about Nick Saban?
Yeah.
How about Nick Saban meeting with Ebersucks and talking about how you develop quarterbacks? And that's exactly what the game of football is about. And I think it's awesome. I think it's everything you want. I think it's everything you need. And I'm curious in the comments section, are you a fan of the Super League? Are you excited about a concept? And let's just call it, cut the middle, 70 teams that each probably have an expenditure of over $100 million in costs related to athletics and football, mainly football, because the conference structure, the other thing we need to get right, the Big 12's not going away. I love that conversation over the week. Oh, the Big 12's in trouble here. Look at what idiot up in the Northwest wrote. The conferences aren't going away. You still have basketball. You still have stick and ball. You still have water sports. If we learned anything at the Olympics, swimming's a huge sport. Yeah. Track and field's a huge sport.
Just because you don't see it every day doesn't mean it ain't happening.
So my point is, this is a football conversation. Are you in favor of it? Are you in favor of a model where there's no supposition or, well, yeah, I'm going to vote for Texas to get in over the quarterbackless Florida State? I'm very much in favor of that. I'm very much in favor of the NFL standings, the NFL wild card. You're in because you won, you're out because you lost.
Yeah, and I think as fans, it makes it better. Like, you think about the drama around the college football playoff, and, you guys remember the Herb Street, screenshot off ESPN with the helmets in the background, and, like, everybody freaked out about that. And it's like, dude, like, why don't we have a system where we know, okay, hey, you're playing in this bowl game, and you've got a sponsor for that. You've got two teams on the field. Whoever wins is going here. You know, I mean, it really should be that simple. And yeah, I do think, anywhere between 60 and 80 teams is a perfectly fine number. It's workable. It's doable. I love the idea of the super conference teams just playing each other all year long. Like, just make it a clean cut, easy to understand system. Like, that's it. It doesn't need to be a complicated situation. You're talking about, and this is the thing with football. I think, we get so many guys who like break down game tape and we make it all complicated. Dude, football is one of the easiest sports to understand. It's not hard. It's very easy. Like, let's not overcomplicate this sport. It's team A versus team B, and whoever wins is going here. Like, it should literally be that simple. And then because it's that simple, you're going to get all the sponsorship dollars flowing in. And by the way, if you get a good matchup, you're going to get more money. So we don't need computers and people and all these things deciding it. And on top of that, I would still say, I think if you're a Florida State fan, this should feel good. You should be supporting this concept, man.
And I think to that point, we're already in a situation where leagues and conferences are saying, hey, if you don't make a bowl game, your distribution's shrinking. Hey, if you go to the college football playoff, you're getting exponentially more money. We're seeing uneven revenue sharing in larger conferences. And that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be a thing where Florida State's guaranteed to get more money than everybody else. If you go to the college football playoff, you're getting more money than everybody else. If you only go to a bowl game, you're going to get more money than people who don't go to bowl games. If you go to the tournament and you're the reason the conference gets tournament shares, you're getting more of that tournament share than the people who didn't go to the tournament.
Yeah.
It really is as simple as that. And if you look at what we've talked about, for the financial success of college athletics, basketball is incredibly important. You have to have football and basketball at a very high level. Florida State, or, I mean, if you look at, again, Utah, BYU, what have we talked about for how many years? Where did the Utah basketball program go to?
Yeah.
Right. If you look around this country, Kansas is a great example of this. UK, you look at John Calipari's exit from UK, and you say to yourself, man, what a precipitous fall off that was. But at Kentucky, you have sort of basketball and sort of football, but you're not elite right now in either one. But then you look at Kansas and you say, well, rock chalk, dude. We've got arguably a top 3 team in the Big 12 this year. And you've got one of the best coaches of the modern era in Bill Self in college basketball. You're making money.
Cooking with gas.
You can do whatever you want. But if you are, if you're Cincinnati's not winning in football or basketball right now. Like, I look at Houston, look at the sense of urgency that the Cougars of Houston are operating with athletically. They know they're elite in basketball, one of the best programs in the country. They've got to get football right. And you fired a coach and you hired one of the hottest coaches in college football. And now it's time to go and win. It's what I say about our friend Joey in Lubbock.
Yeah.
No more excuses. You're clearly moving in the right direction in basketball. I think we can all agree, right? You're in the best basketball conference in the country. And now the football team's got to come through and raise all ships. It's what I always say about 8-Ball down in Baylor. Unforgivable you didn't whack that dude.
Yeah.
Unforgivable.
Well, it just tells everybody the standards that you operate with. And again,
I agree with that.
I completely agree. If you're not going to go to a bowl game or go to the tournament, then you shouldn't be getting shares of that money. And the problem is, the conversation immediately shifts to, well, Marty, in the Big 12, what happens if you got, several teams who don't go to the playoff or to bowl games? Well, then Brett Yormark's got to figure out how to change that. And Brett Yormark's got to figure out how to incentivize these schools to spend a little bit more money. And the problem is for the Big 12, unlike for the ACC, let's say, the Big 12's got a bunch of brands in it that should be good, that are mediocre, I would say. The ACC has a bunch of basketball schools that are pretty good at basketball and one football school right now. So I'm not really sure that we can say that the ACC is in a stronger position for all the Big 12 haters.
Isn't Duke and Carolina the exact essence of this conversation?
Yeah.
They both play football. They sort of win football games. And you've put multiple quarterbacks in the NFL now. But do you really play football? You don't really play football.
No, you're basketball schools.
But every football conference in this country, including any potential Super League, would love and will have Duke and North Carolina in it.
Yep.
End of story. Because and I can't emphasize this enough. If you look at who was a victim in realignment, Washington State and Oregon State. Yes for Oregon State, no for Washington State. Look at San Diego State. Does San Diego State want to spend the money that's required to play in a Super League?
No, I don't believe they do. Because if you did, you'd be spending it already.
I would tend to agree with that.
Like, if you were comfortable with it, if you were, again, if you look around the landscape, like, talking about Houston, nobody would even be talking about Houston unless
it's Houston.
Yeah, nobody would be talking about Houston and their huge comeback in athletics unless they had spent money and gone on the recruiting trail and improved the basketball
and cheated
program.
to win in baseball. Oh, that's
yeah,
Major
but nobody
League
cares
Baseball.
about cheating in college athletics.
It's fine.
We don't care about that. Remember, Jim? So anyway, the point is that, I just look around and I say, yeah, Houston probably makes the cut because of their basketball program. San Diego State's not making the cut. Washington State is not making the cut, And I think you go around the country and there are several bubble teams.
I think you look at any P5 team right now, every team in the Big 12 is in. There's not a P5 team right now a P4 in the two wing nuts out west. I don't think that there is a P4 right now that gets whacked.
I think there's a couple in the SEC. I think Georgia Tech, right? Isn't Georgia Tech on the border?
No.
You think they're just automatically in?
Unless they don't want to be in. Yeah, I do.
That's crazy.
I do.
I see. That's the part of the Super League I don't understand. How are you going to put Georgia Tech in the Super League?
Vanderbilt.
But what? Vanderbilt's getting in on name alone? When's the last time Vanderbilt's done anything?
Hello, Jay Cutler. I'm telling you, that feels like a want to versus are you able to?
Yeah,
they're in. If you want to be in, you're in. I think it's as simple as that. I look at more of the top G5 schools, the Bossa States. I look at Fresno State. Fresno State's a pretty good example of this. Look at UConn. Does UConn want into a college football Super League? Fuck no.
No.
You're not putting UConn football in a Super League.
No.
They don't need it. Why would you? If you're UConn and you are that mighty of a basketball school, Why would you want anything to do with the Super League? That makes no sense to me. Now, Duke and Carolina, because anything they do in football benefits their basketball program. Absolutely. Super League. Georgia Tech, a historical, and again, I know you guys in the millennial generation don't know anything about history.
Yeah.
But Georgia Tech, a historical basketball power. Absolutely. Syracuse? Nah, I'm good. Nah, I'm good. I'm not doing it. Right? You look at the G5s. I look at, again, I think Boise, Fresno State, San Diego State. Can you really make me an argument that any of those three schools can compete at the highest level? I would say no. Your basketball programs, San Diego State's interesting. Their basketball program has been very good of late. But is it historically good? Probably not. Is their football program historically good? Probably not.
No.
Are they able in the California state system to spend $100 million a year? Not close. No, absolutely.
I don't know.
Not.
What's UCLA contributing?
Absolutely not. Well, but UCLA is can UCLA afford it? Can Cal Berkeley afford it? And this is why I say about Washington State. Can Washington State athletics make the argument that they can pay kids and expand roster sizes and scholarships and expand infrastructure? And no, man, they had a damn near staff revolt last year. No, the answer is no.
But I also think there's some of this too. Like I agree with that. I mean, you're not going to be able to afford it, but yeah, I also think that there's this conversation of like you can't just have. You're not going to have 100 teams in this thing, and there's going to be teams, and I don't know what those teams are going to be yet. But there's definitely going to be the try-hard team that wants to go beyond their means to get into the Super League. That probably shouldn't be there. And someone's going to have to say, yeah, you know what? You're probably not a fit, man. And I appreciate the enthusiasm, but, it's probably not a good idea. And I'm just curious how that part of the conversation is going to go, because it's always this way in life. With anything that is like the new shiny object, there's always going to be the guy who maybe, isn't a big time winner, has been to a tournament once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
And they happen to do that recently, and they're going to lean on that. And it's like, bro, like we all know that, okay, you may have been like, I love the historical power thing, or like, hey, we did this 20 years ago. And it's like, bro, that's cool. You did it 20 years ago, but that doesn't mean that you have the annual revenue for at least like 5 years to justify doing this thing.
But I also think that you're in a run-up period. You're looking at a massive bill for this settlement that's about to become final.
Yeah.
You're looking at a massive bill to expand scholarships. That's so much more money. And I think people think, well, yeah, that's just a scholarship. I mean, they're just going to let the kid go. That's a lot more money. The infrastructure required to support paying the players, to support the scholarships. You in college football, you've got to support the kid academically. In college basketball, and I think a lot of people know this, the one and dones, there's a lot of kids who don't ever go to a class in college. Do you guys understand that? That there are a lot of college basketball players that are one and done that never see the inside of a lecture hall. College basketball is completely different. College football is now a huge expenditure, huge revenue generator. And now I understand not everybody is the Ohio State or Notre Dame. I totally understand that not everybody's Georgia, Bama. Totally get it, bro.
Cashless.
Right? There's a lot of poor SOBs out there. And this is, again, why I ask about the historical basketball powers.
Yeah.
But I look at who's another fringe G5 school? Tulane or Memphis. Look at Memphis has been begging for how long?
Right.
For how long? Memphis going to spend $100 million a year on football? Memphis going to do what it takes? Is Memphis going to do what Boise State? Look at the money they're putting into facilities at Boise State. Boise State's shown the wherewithal. right? I don't know that there are very many G5s across this country that can do what Boise State's doing. Not Northern Illinois, not
Well, what about SMU?
SMU.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
But SMU is a very interesting example. SMU's in now.
Yeah.
SMU's a P4 now.
Yeah.
And all we've heard about is, well, they're collectives. And collectives.
They're boosters.
Collectives have now taken this significant jump in importance. I mean, you have athletic directors that are quitting their jobs to go run collectives.
And you have
wild
head coaches saying that it's the collective's job to discipline their football players for off the field issues. That's how important collectives are right now.
And I don't disagree with that, because, not to ramble on about this, but do you guys understand now that you have 18-year-old kids there? You have 16-year-old kids that are getting into agreements with collectives, signing contracts, and then getting in trouble and realizing real world consequences for getting into trouble. Well, is that the 16-year-old fault or the collective's fault for getting in business with a 16-year-old?
Right.
Nobody cares about that answer, because this is just the business we're in now. Right? This is the business we're in now. And I don't know how you justify, as a university, paying a softball player $1 million, allegedly, because now it's starting to sound like that deal didn't actually happen. But you're paying softball players $1 million or more. Like, who's making that money back? Who's making that money back on Mikey Williams, the basketball player involved in a shooting?
Man, who's now just fell off the face of the earth after getting in trouble.
Nobody's making that money back. And he's on scholarship. Nobody's making that money back. They paid Mikey Williams.
But like, Mikey Williams was a guy who was a star.
Mikey Williams was a social media. Do you guys know that? Just search Mikey, Mikey Williams, and you look at his story, and I want to say he was 17 when he got involved in the shooting. I want to say, like,
and I, he's on the comeback trail or whatever, but just the fall from where he was.
Yeah, April 2023, he was arrested on 5 charges of assault with a deadly weapon because he fired into a car. Lost everything he had in basketball. And now he pled out. No jail time, and I think he's at UCF, South Florida. No, he's at He's at UCF, Central Florida. But how much money did sponsors lose on that kid? That's the problem, and the issue becomes, and I think it's a really good point. At what point does the university just give it to the collective? I think a lot of them are doing it now.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily believe it's good. We have Mike Gundy talking about how he routinely drives drunk at Big 12 Media Day.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how it appeared and sounded to my ears.
I'm a man.
That's wild that a guy of Mike Gundy's level said that.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's not that level.
I can't even imagine it.
Yeah, and that's why I think for the school and for head coaches, all jokes aside about what Kirby said about collectives,
crazy.
Like I think that's why you're essentially, if you're the school, like if you're a chancellor, let's say, or an athletic director, or someone in management of the school or the athletic department, having to say like, hey, yeah, if you're going to go and do deals with collectives, hey, the collective gave you that Hellcat or that Lambo or that car that you then went and sped off in with your friends and, had a gun.
Kirby's a really interesting thing. People are dead at Georgia.
Yeah, bro.
That's not even an exaggeration.
And Kirby wants to sit out here and say that it's the collective's responsibility.
And it's multiple yearly, every summer, cats are getting in trouble driving. Do you understand how many guys have gotten in trouble with car crime at Georgia?
But the thing that stands out to me about this collective angle is that Kirby and guys like him are just looking to pass the buck. Because,
but wouldn't you?
Well, I would probably, but
do
think
you
about
understand
this.
how much responsibility handing all this
dude,
shit to the collective takes a lot of stuff off his plate.
But he doesn't get a free pass. The trouble was happening before the collective started.
It doesn't matter, though. That doesn't make. See, we deal in fantasy land and we deal in idealism. Fuck that. What we are talking about is Kirby Smart is doing what every coach should do.
Yeah, the only difference is dudes are dead, as you said.
Right. But how much that was that 2 years ago now?
Not long enough for people forgot.
No, of course not. But now the collective actually has a real seat at the table. Now you're under contract. If you get a DUI driving an all SRT, that comes out of the ass of the collective, not the football program. It's brilliant.